Normally we dive right into public input, but this evening there's a couple of formal things I'd like to get out of the way first. This last week on, I believe it was Wednesday, September 30th, our Budget Director Ed Mongold presented Kathy with the tentative budget for 2016 and also made copies for the board members. They now have their copies. I don't think it was up on the website yet, Kathy, was it?
Yep.
It is now on the website? Okay. Just talking a little bit about it, this tentative budget is once again one which will be very good for taxpayers. As in each budget that I've produced, if we approve it as it's presently submitted, there would be another small tax cut. And I do mean small. It's 0.1% down on the tax for the average home. Any tax cut is better than no tax cut. This budget is actually the compilation of the budget requests from each of our department heads with a tweak here or there by myself and by Ed Mongold. All of the hard work is done by Ed. I just get the credit. We do have some increase in overall appropriations, about $111,000 total, but this increase is offset by an increase in our tax base, bringing your taxes down by that 0.11%. A homeowner assessed at $125,000 will pay approximately 55 cents less this year. We do have budget pressures. We have increases in cost. This budget allows $40,000 additional for salt. Because of the problems getting salt last year, the prices jumped quite a bit. We have $29,700 of additional spending for our firemen this year. An increase in payments for library services of $26,000. We are anticipating that our health insurance costs will stay stable, possibly even go down, and retirement is finally starting to turn around and go back down. Bonding has come down to just about $8 million by the end of 2015, and next year we will be doing some additions in bonding for Fairmont Park, also possibly for the Greenway Trail. We'll have to do some bonding for the 2 trucks we just ordered. With this, we anticipate our overall bonding level at the end of this year will also be just barely above $8 million. So whatever we pay off in bonds, we'll be adding new bonds for this particular year. There are a couple of items which aren't included in this budget that the board should still consider over the next few weeks. First, with a payment we just received of $17,500 of additional casino money from the county, we received a total of about $77,000 actually for last year. If this continues on into 2016, we can reasonably anticipate this amount quarterly. So we could take a look at it, adding a revenue of something akin to $70,000 a year if the board chooses. Because we have no control over it and there's not much history there, I'm a little leery to recommend that, but it is certainly something we should consider. That would be money that goes into the general fund. Since we don't have a general tax, it would become additional fund balance. Or we can move money around in the sales tax and generate some money in the highway fund. We could plan some of that money in the highway fund for the building or rehabbing of the bridges, which we're about to talk about in our motions. There are 2 bridges which need to be severely redone or replaced entirely. That's the one at Lemke and also just down the creek from that on Eric Road. It's not enough to pay for the whole thing, but it's certainly a good start if we put that in as a revenue. So, the discussion regarding these and any other board changes can be brought out at our next board meeting on October 19th. They probably won't be going on this evening as the board members have not had time enough to study this. We will be meeting with our department heads in a couple of weeks at a board session here. This will be an open session if you want to appear. Normally it's just a work session where we ask them the same questions that Ed and I have asked, and the board can get their responses and add anything they choose. Then on the proposed budget schedule, the public hearing I'm proposing for 7:15 p.m. at the November 2nd meeting. And that's when everybody will have the opportunity of speaking on the budget, including the board members. In theory, if we have that hearing, we could pass a budget that night, or we could wait and pass it at our next meeting on November 16th, with still having possibility of changes up to that point. The budgets do show the wages, the salaries for elected officials for next year. That's on there. If anybody has any problems with that, if you see anything that doesn't look correct, let us know and we can make that change at the next board meeting. That's about all I have to say about the budget. There will be the opportunity later on of asking any questions you have. Now you have the opportunity of looking at it and working on it from there. So, that being said, let's go on to public input. Brian, do we have anybody that wishes to speak?
Nobody signed up.
Is there anybody who would like to say anything to the board? Okay. If not, we'll move on. We do have a couple of different sets of minutes. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes for September 14th and or September 28th? I need a motion to approve, guys.
So moved.
The minutes of September 28th.
Okay, you got that, Kathy? So Larry and Randy, I heard you. Are you second?
I'll second.
Okay, we are working on the minutes of September 28th. Is there anything anybody wishes to modify or change? If not, then all in favor of these minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's approved. Do we have a motion for the minutes of September 14th?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Gil. Do we have a second? Second by Art. Anything that anybody wishes to modify or change on this? If not, then all in favor of approving these minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? One abstention. 4-1, that's approved. We do have a bill pay. The bill pay is small. It's only been a week, so that's $108,312.35. The numbers are 2015, 1900 through 1979. Does anybody wish to move those in for approval to pay?
So moved.
Moved by Art. I need a second.
Second on the question.
Second, Larry. Yes, go ahead, Larry.
Actually, a question, but I was just gonna make a little announcement here. Looking through the bill pays, wondering if anybody could guess how much a gallon the town pays for gasoline. Town board members can't answer this question. Well, it shocked me. It's pretty reasonable. $1.50 a gallon.
Yep.
So, you know, when we buy gas and some of our products, we don't have to pay taxes. So we're buying it at $1.50. Hopefully it keeps up that way so we can save more money. But I don't know, the reason it was a few years ago way over $2, approaching $3 a gallon. I remember $2.89, almost $3 a gallon. So we're about half of what it used to be a couple of years back.
Yeah, I don't know what diesel fuel actually costs, but I know it's coming down in similar event, and that's where the town spends a lot of money on diesel fuel, a lot more than on gasoline.
Yeah, I just had the 87 octane bill up there.
Okay, anything else? If not, then all in favor of approving these bills for payment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's approved. Because it's only been 1 week, I told department heads they did not have to be here. I do see that Paul is here. Paul, you had something you wanted to bring up.
I have two things. I wanted to trade our Bobcat excavator in. Guy will charge us $4,450. We get the same machine, 2 years newer. Ours is gonna need the tracks replaced, tune up, all that stuff. That would cost me about $2,400 right there. So in essence, we're paying $2,000 for a brand new machine. We can keep updated like that. It really takes down our maintenance costs.
I guess my question to Matt, possibly Ed, would be, what does that do with our purchasing system? It can't, so your purchase is under a state bid?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, you've not prepared a motion for that at this point, right?
I didn't get the prices back in time to let you know.
I know last meeting, Paul presented this too, didn't you? And, you were gonna check because you were quoted this like in the spring. And then, so you went back to him to see, after using it a little bit this summer, how much additional cost, and would it go up $400?
$450 because of the amount of hours that we put on it during the course of the summer.
Makes sense.
He was actually kind of surprised when he heard about it. At first, he said he didn't think there'd be any increase in price, and then he came out and looked at it, he goes, oh, I gotta increase it a little bit because of the amount of hours.
So with the trade-in, it's 4,000 or
4,450.
24? 4,450.
Randy, didn't you, in our workshop, didn't you say something about the tracks are a couple $1,000s, but with everything else you gotta do?
Well, he's saying 2,400, but as soon as they take the tracks apart, they're gonna tell you need rollers, you need track tensioners, you're gonna need this.
Drive motors, they
The-
were out
Yeah,
there.
it goes, it'll inch up real quick, so.
Didn't you say just an oil change is like $400 or $500?
But maybe buy all the filters and everything that goes with it, $500.
I mean, I would say as long as our budget director says that there's money to do this, and we held them off from our last meeting, I'll make the motion to go proceed.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Anything further on the question? If not, then all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, you got your approval.
Thank you. The next thing is, they came out to do maintenance on our heaters today in our back garage and found out that all the, heat exchangers are cracked. We found one that was cracked. He was a little leery to go and look at the other three, well, he did, and basically they had to shut them off. We have no heat in our back garage. The units are shot, I think they're well over 20 years old. I talked to him about it, felt that radiant heat would be the way to go. He said it'd be about 25% savings in fuel. I just talked to the grant writer, and he says there are grants available. Could be 50% reimbursement, could be 30%, but he said there would be grant money available for the heaters.
But if
The
we,
problem I have is, it's getting
you
cold.
gotta get hot.
I don't know if this would be an emergency repair.
Did you get prices from three
I
places?
didn't get a price.
Just one,
It just happened today.
okay? What level are you talking for?
Around 26,000.
Now, is that just the heat exchanger itself, or are you talking the whole units? You're talking about replacing the whole units?
Replace the whole thing. Basically, what they were saying is, put the money into that, them heaters just isn't worth it.
So you won't replace the heat exchangers, you're gonna go with whole new units, infrared heat,
Yeah, radiant heat,
radiant heat, yeah, same.
which is a much more efficient
Yeah,
model.
no question, just asking.
Yeah, I know, I'd feel better if we had multiple prices, and I know it creates a problem for you. Do you have a way of either heating it, or is it not important yet to put heat in there?
So, if it's down to freezing, we have water lines in there, there's no other way, I have no heaters in there that can do it. Unless you want me to run some fuel heaters in there and actually have more steam than heat exchangers.
Now, you mentioned grants, but sometimes with grants, you can't spend the money until you get approval for a grant. So if you
not gonna
spend
work.
the money up front, you may not be eligible to get any grants on the backside.
What he told me in there real fast, and I can check with him tomorrow, was that usually you can put them in, you get reimbursed for them. Put them in first, pay for them, and then they'll reimburse you partial of it. Especially if it's being more fuel efficient. I just had a minute to talk to him, I didn't have a lot of time to talk to him.
Can we afford to wait 2 weeks and get a couple more prices?
I guess, as long as it doesn't get below freezing.
Now, how many of them are there? 4?
There's 4 unit heaters, they call them, and in today's day and age, they don't even use them. Most places don't use them, they go with the radiant heat, import heating, stuff like that.
Is that
I
just
would
where the
just- I
trucks
would
are
say
parked,
to
Paul,
do it.
the back shop? I'd like to see, I mean, maybe wait 2 weeks and get some more prices,
Yeah, I think you should get some
What's the
prices.
turnaround time from the time of award to get them installed?
I didn't ask that.
One other question, what do you do with your waste oil?
People, come get it usually. People that have waste oil furnaces, so we don't have to pay to get rid of it. we have to pay, safety.
As long as you're calling, see sometime about a waste oil. I mean, I take mine to a local contractor, he burns it in the shop.
Right.
Is that a possibility to supplement our heat, or is that just a waste?
They tell me there's a lot of maintenance with them, a real lot. From the dirty oil, there's a lot of problems that you can run into. It would never be big enough to heat our whole shop.
No, just a supplement.
I could look into that. I know we talked about that years ago, I remember messing around with it.
You need quite a bit of waste oil to run those. My nephew's got a pretty big, like a 5-6 car garage repairs with, and he almost runs out of oil. He doesn't have enough oil to keep that whole garage going for the whole winter.
Stolting's use it down at their place. They get it from some fire truck guy that does fire trucks, and I think they go through like 600 gallons a year. And that's net though. That's not that big of a bill. But like you said, it could supplement it. I can look into one.
Okay.
There's a lot of contractors that have supplemental heat source, like if your heat goes out, your furnace or something else. And I'm sure I just text a contractor that I know of. He'll be contacting you tomorrow, at least to offer some assistance in that route, if not to be able to opportunity to bid the job.
I just had one more thought. There's 4 heaters, what if we just declare one of them an emergency, wherever the guys in your shop spend most of their time in them. I don't know whether you wanted to get one and wait for 3 more, if you wanted to, at least you'll have some heat back in there, or do you want to wait for all 4?
I would just assume, well, I would think we're gonna switch them heaters out into radiant heat, so it wouldn't be the same type of heater.
Okay.
I mean, if you're gonna go put one of them in, and then you're gonna go to radiant heat, just put money into that one, you're not gonna use it.
Well, I know I'd feel better if we did have multiple prices available,
You want, just 2 other prices, 3 other prices like that?
please.
Well, what's the, I gotta ask Ed, what's the bid threshold where you can get informal quotes before we have to do a sealed bid?
35,000. 20,000 for a straight purchase, 35,000 for public works. This would be public works because it includes installation. So 35 would be the cutoff.
So the 25,000 that he has for one, that
It
should satisfy?
Well, it should be 3 bids and they should be written.
Okay.
You said 25 for 4 heaters, right?
25 to replace the whole system.
For all 4 of them?
Not per heater.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Okay, thank you, Paul. Anything else for Paul and anything else? Okay, thank you. Arlene, what's going on with our seniors?
Luncheon for volunteers, and we got support for having over 1,000 hours contributed to the community. And our one 93-year-old lady has 32 years service and
Amazing.
presented with a bouquet of flowers.
Let's go ahead and say her name.
Frances Herstead.
Okay, you got that, Mia?
You don't want her age, though, no.
Just that she's been there for 33 years, right?
32 years. They asked her age, and she said, never mind. I need to be a little older than that.
63.
Yeah.
Big flex.
Yeah, there you go.
That's great.
It was quite an honor to get all that. We weren't the only ones, but just for the whole county. For most of our volunteering, especially in, Northgate.
Did you get your shot?
No,
What? Your flu shot didn't happen, huh?
I never did the
No, the flu shot was given to any Wheatfield senior that wanted to get that about probably a little over a week ago.
We had 30-some people show up.
Good.
So that was good. And we're just getting ready for Christmas. We're selling Christmas dinners.
Excellent.
I hate to say it, but it's around the corner.
Next senior dance is
Over
14th?
17th.
17.
17th. Coming soon.
But the dinner dance at the town was coming up October 17th.
Okay, terrific. See you there for sure. Thank you. Tim Zuber, Wendell.
Thank you. We really only have one item on our agenda, and it's basically a continuation of our public hearing that we had before the formal meeting started tonight. Again, to follow suit with the DEC's request, we're looking to amend the town's zoning code to include that verbiage. And without reading everything that's on this motion, I'll go ahead and read the main part of it for you. But our motion would be to accept local law 4-2015, which would amend section 101-7A of chapter 101, which is flood damage prevention of the town of Wheatfield, of the town of Wheatfield's code, by adding the following language. Number 4, a letter of map revision, case number 15-02-0453P, amending the flood insurance study, and panel 6063C0327E of the flood insurance rate map dated October 16th, 2015. Whereas the town of Wheatfield has held the required public hearing and has received no adverse comments. Whereas in accordance with the New York Seeker regulations contained in 6 NYCRR Part 617, the town board has completed an environmental review of this proposed law and has identified no significant environmental impacts. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wheatfield Town Board issues a seeker negative declaration and enacts the above referenced law.
Okay, does anybody wish to move this?
So move.
I'll second.
Moved by Art, second by Randy. Basically, it's window dressing for us. Does anybody have any further comment? If not, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's approved.
That's all we have. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for Tim? Or for Drew?
Nope.
If not, then we'll move on to regular motions. One long-winded one.
Read the whole thing, or?
No.
Okay. All right, this is from Town Attorney's Office. It is regarding modification of parking requirements for 3448 Niagara Falls Boulevard, a property owned by Dr. Hannon. It is in the agenda packet. It is lengthy, so it is with regard to a variation or modification of the parking requirements pursuant to zoning code section 200-59A, and it's as presented in the motion packet with certain conditions. It is not a permanent variance. It is a parking modification with conditions.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. I like the modifications that you put on it. I think it's good for him, good for the town, and good in case something happens in the long run. So I will second that motion.
Yeah, this was originally approved by the planning board back when, but the town board actually has to make the final variance. It's not a ZBA action, it's actually a town board action. When it came to us, we were concerned about the future, that business could be sold to something else and need parking, and we sure don't want to see people parking on Niagara Falls Boulevard. The other option that we had anticipated might be able to happen didn't. The property next door was taken off the market. It's not available. So we're left with either saying yes or no to a good, solid local businessman. And in order to be friendly to local business, I think it's appropriate to approve this. It's not that short on parking, but it is a little short on the total parking. Does anybody else have comment? If not, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that is approved.
Next motion is from the town supervisor and town attorney to prepare and disseminate full RFPs for engineering design and construction costs for the reconstruction of both Lemke Road and Eric Road bridges.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Gill. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Randy. Normally, in the past, we would simply have gone to our town engineer and ask for a proposal. In this case, we actually have two town engineers, and they're both involved with drainage. Gil, it's your motion. Do you wish to go to both of those engineering firms, or do you want to do a general request to anybody who wishes to bid?
I'd be happy with going with both of them.
Randy, your second?
Yes, on both.
Okay, then the motion would be worded in a manner that we will be looking for two companies to bid on this proposal. Anything further on the question? This would be for work to be done next year. It's not such an emergency that we have to get it done this year.
Are two bids enough, or do you have to have a third?
It's engineering. I don't think you have to have a third.
Not for professional services.
Okay, so, anything further on the question? This is strictly a request for proposal. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. I think, Tim, you actually have most of the work done. We'll look for your proposal as well as the other. Matt, you got one more.
And this is from town attorney. This was actually a motion, I believe it was in the town engineer Wendell's packet last time that was tabled. It's to accept the completed PIP improvements for storm source, sanitary storm water line services for Phase 2A of the Wheatfield Lakes Patio Home Subdivision. The maintenance bond, public drainage easements, and trail maintenance commitment letter as associated paperwork must be approved by the town attorney. And actually, it wasn't on the Wendell, it was on CRD, right? I don't have it in front of me.
GHD.
GHD, sorry.
Yeah.
GHD. Agenda.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make the motion. Do we have a second? Second by Art. This has been a long, drawn-out process. It's been about 3 years going through the process whereby Ryan had done some things that might have been untoward. In order to make up for that, they've had to give up a cul-de-sac. In the process of giving up that cul-de-sac to get the green space that they needed, they wanted to build 4 more homes, and this would be approval for these 4 homes. And it's also accepting, our town accepting the trail that was put in on behalf of the HOA. It will belong to the HOA when this is done. It's actually private property. It belongs to the HOA, not to the town. It's not public. Ryan has done just about everything we've asked. We asked him to have everything done before we would approve it. We've gotten there. So I think it's time to approve. Does anybody else have any comment?
Yes, I was asking through emails, and I know Dave Britton from, was he GHA?
GHD.
GHD. He responded. I wanted to see a copy of the homeowners association's agreement, and I think our town attorney showed me some language, but I think it was very generic language in there. It didn't mention trails specifically, but I want to be assured that Ryan Holmes and the HOA, and I guess specifically the HOA, is going to take care of these things in the long term, because Ryan's track record hasn't been great on communications to the residents, the town board, or the HOA.
It will belong to the HOA. It will be up to the HOA as to whether they do or do not take care of the trail. Ryan did what they designed and what we approved, and the HOA has accepted that.
Do we have a letter from the HOA?
We did. That was sent around this afternoon, I think. At least I saw it this afternoon.
Maybe I didn't see that last
I didn't
email.
see it either.
I don't know if I can call it up. Matt, did you get it? You saw it too, right?
I did see it. I don't know.
Is anybody here from?
I'm here from Ryan. I could probably forward a copy off to you. It was sent to Dave at GHD a week or so ago. And there is specific language in there that does reference wood chip trail in the back, pursuant to the guidelines of the HOA in terms of maintenance and stuff like that. It's like a 3-page letter, I believe, 3 or 4-page letter.
Yeah,
What are the terms of the maintenance, the way it is now, the way it is today?
What do you mean by maintenance?
Well, I guess you could maintain a trail going through a swamp in a lot of different ways.
Right, yeah, I don't think there's any specific notion on how or when, or it's just pursuant to the bylaw, falls under the category of how they maintain grass or whatever else it might be in there, there's no, from what I recall looking at the letter, there's no specific schedule, so to speak, to
In
maintain.
2 years, you probably wouldn't even know that thing's there, if you let it go the way it was.
If it's not maintained.
That was the question we're trying to figure out. is
Well,
how you
but the maintenance will be the responsibility of the HOA. They may choose to let it to go back to nature.
But the town building department or the town board, we're not gonna have any say. If residents come and complain to us that the trail's not usable next summer, what do we do as a town board, or we just throw it back to the HOA?
It would be the same as if the HOA didn't cut the grass in the backyards. It's their issue. Here is the letter. I can read it if I can read it. It's pretty small. Dated August 21st, to Chad Rush from Jeff Hawks, who is of Clover Management. That's the management of the HOA. The Villas at Wheatfield Lakes HOA has accepted all common lands. God, I can't read it. Matt, maybe you can read it.
I can read it. Deeded from the sponsor of,
Okay,
go ahead, Matt.
I couldn't find it on my
You
phone.
have to go back and forth.
Here, read it here.
The Villas at Wheatfield Lakes HOA has accepted all common lands deeded from the sponsor to the association as outlined in Exhibits D and E of the declaration recorded in Niagara County Clerk's Office of Book 3442, page 765. As such, the association is responsible for the maintenance of any improvements on association property, including the wood chip trail, in accordance with Section 502 of the declaration, copy enclosed. And I think that declaration, Larry, is what I showed you earlier.
Yeah, so okay, the declaration was pretty blasé. I mean, it said common space and didn't use, I don't think the word trail was mentioned anywhere in there, was it?
Yeah, I don't know if the trail had been established back then when it was written, but it indicated the homeowners association is responsible for any common areas, and I think it was open-ended in case more developed, but they are responsible to maintain, and they have the authority to assess the property owners the necessary, cost to maintain. But basically, that was giving them the authority to do so. So if it's not done, the property owners there would have whatever rights granted under that homeowners association to go after them to make a decision if they're going to maintain it, if they're going to abandon it, how they're going to maintain it, if they're going to improve it, et cetera.
Yeah, it's just like we made sure that the gazebo, at the last meeting, I think it was you, if it wasn't you, it was Gil, brought up the issue of the gazebo having been damaged by moving it.
Yep.
And that was also taken care of, but the HOA is not interested in that gazebo. They're actually asked us if we were willing to take it. Mike took a look at it. It's a little too small for our uses, so he basically said no. The HOA, it's their material. They can do whatever they choose. They can have a nice bonfire.
It's plastic, it's not gonna burn.
Might be a very smoky bonfire. So, I just think it's time to get this done. Anybody else? If not, then all in favor of approving these PIPs signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
3, 2, and it's passed. There's a secondary,
Yes, there's a second part to that motion on the same topic, to accept the easements associated with Phase 2A of the Wheatfield Lakes Patio Home subdivision. Those easements, I did review and were reviewed, and they seem appropriate.
okay. Anybody wish to make that motion? Okay. Moved by Art. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Randy. Anything on the question? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, it's 4-1 approved. Is that it, or is there more?
That is all I have in the motions.
Okay. Then we'll move on to board member items. Councilman Elwig, anything?
I think at the last meeting, we found out about a pipeline meeting that's being held at Wendellville Fire Company on October 7th. And you have to RSVP to this meeting. You can't just show up. I registered, I signed up. I don't know if anybody else did in the room, but I think they were limiting it to 150 people. Did you sign up, Wally? So I don't know. I was just curious if anybody got rejected, because I'm sure the Pendleton people are gonna have more than 150 people at this thing.
You can bet on that.
And because the tone of this meeting, October 7th, is probably gonna be, controlled by National Fuel Gas, the Stop NFG compressor folks in Pendleton have flyered their town, and they have another meeting the day before on October 6th, Tuesday at the Pendleton Center for United Methodist Church from 7 to 9 p.m. And the church did say that, this meeting does not reflect their position on it, but the Pendleton Action Group will be meeting there the night before, probably to plan strategy. But you really got to get in your federal senators and congressmen's ear on this one, because FERC is controlling this thing. So local meetings are okay, but residents really got to start writing their congressmen and senators to get in FERC's, they're elected officials, and sometimes if you put a lot of pressure on elected officials, they do things you want them to do. So, I just wanted to make that announcement. That's it.
All righty.
Wally?
Go ahead.
The meeting tomorrow is gonna be a discussion about the people that live close to this thing, within 10 miles.
I know.
It's a big deal. This is a big deal. The more people that go there, the better it's gonna be.
If I can piggyback on your discussion, Larry, just this afternoon, I received an email from Pat Kelly of National Grid saying they're gonna have another meeting on Saturday, November 7th. And once again, it's going to be at Wendellville. They're not interested in coming into here in Wheatfield to have a meeting. So there will be another meeting a month later, November 7th, Saturday, same rules, 1 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and get a reservation.
Supervisor Cliff, have we found out, the town of Wheatfield, have we found out specifically which 3 locations are gonna put the dehydration station yet?
No, I have not. I know that they put it, I know that the application, I was told that the application, I haven't seen anything, that the application put it on Liberty Drive.
That's their preference. They have 3 sites, but they've not picked a site yet. So they're
Nothing.
doing all this preliminary work in Pendleton for the compressor station, which now it's closer to Wheatfield, because now they're on Killian Road instead of Aiken Road, and they're right in our backyard. So, Councilman Doucette, you get ready for flyering the town again?
I don't even think it's half a mile out of Wheatfield, if I'm not mistaken, down Killian Road. Yeah, we've asked them to hold meetings here in Wheatfield, and they're just refusing so far. They think that Wendellville is close enough. Okay, I'll try to get something up onto the website in the next day or two having it to do with that November 7th meeting. Anything else, Larry?
That's all. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Gerbeck.
Nothing.
Councilman Doucette.
It's been 2 years now since the speed sign hasn't worked. Had a lot of requests for it. We really could have used it on Kruger Road this summer. Wondering if anybody know what's going on, or do we need to, with the budget coming up, budget in a new one?
I personally sent Robin Zastro a few estimates, and I think he received some quotes from the town of Niagara too, and he was gonna share some. I know we had one, it was on Furchin Street, I think, this summer for a while. I don't know if it was on...
Borrowed the sheriff's department.
Oh, okay, the sheriff's, because I saw one in action a couple of times, but I didn't notice whose it was.
So do we have 3 quotes, maybe we can buy one, or what do we
I think
do?
Robin was still bantering back and forth, is it better to buy all new or just replace the unit that's damaged. It's, and I honestly don't know where he stands with that. It's a good question. We probably should find out by our next meeting. Next meeting will be, budget meeting, so probably a good idea.
Is he gonna be one of the presenters at the budget meeting?
Probably not. Not
We
likely.
should invite him in, put a quick slide in for him.
Okay. Anything else, Gil?
Same question, the past 5 or 6 meetings, what are we gonna do about the roof on the community center? So we don't end up with another $100,000 bill at the end of the year next year for water damage.
Tim, that's you.
I get shocked every time I touch this microphone. As we talked about at the last meeting, we were pursuing, scheduling a meeting with Carl Frislin. He's the architect who designed the original building. And, as I understand it, there's a tentative meeting set up with our architect and him, this coming Friday. So I'm hoping that they can come out of that meeting with some recommendations. Again, what the concern is, there's a lot of things that happen with that building over there that aren't shown on the plans, like the whole cupola isn't even on the plans, so we're not sure what the change was that was made during construction to put that on there. So we don't want to go and make a recommendation to change something, not knowing the reason behind what's there now. We don't want to mess things up in an attempt to make them better. So we're going to have a sit-down meeting with the architect to make sure that everybody's in understanding of what the systems are.
Hopefully next meeting.
I'm
Thanks,
hoping
Tim.
I can bring you a recommendation at the next meeting.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, Randy?
Lockport Road got topped today, looks good, that's all.
Is that the final
That's it.
topping?
That man can pave.
Thank goodness. I have nothing this evening. We do have a budget workshop here on October 14th at 6 o'clock, where we'll meet with our department heads. Some of us do have to boogie out about 8 o'clock, so it's gonna have to move right along. Our next meeting is October 19th at 7:30 p.m. And board members can bring any of their ideas in for modifications to the budget to that meeting. Or you can present them ahead of time, and have them ready for that meeting. And then again, our public hearing is November 2nd. Public hearing on the budget is for November 2nd, or just before our regular meeting. And that's it. So we'll go back to public input. Does anybody wish to speak on any subject?
I do. Supervisor Cliff did go with the budget proposal, and I am, as part of the formal budget process, I am required to certify that the 2016 tentative budget was filed in the town clerk's office on September 30th, and that the copies were placed in each of the town board members' mailboxes on September 30th, and tonight is being formally presented to the town board.
Thank you. Sir?
Good evening. Mark Romanowski from Hopkins, Sorgi, and Romanowski. I'm counsel to Bridgestone APM. I'm here before the board looking for a little bit of assistance with handling of a pending application that Bridgestone has with the planning board. To give the council a little bit of a background, Bridgestone is coming into the town of Wheatfield, and in particular the industrial park, to construct a $10 million facility and employ about 60 employees in the first phase and up to 90 employees in the second phase as part of a foam manufacturing facility that they've come to the town of Wheatfield. They've worked with TM Montante, a local developer, to develop the project, put it forward, and move through an approval process which involves both the planning board, the DEC, and the State Historic Preservation Office. We've been before the planning board now for 3 straight meetings, and much to my surprise, I learned earlier this week that we were, in our view, pulled from the planning board's agenda without any notification. We had been expecting, and our discussions with the planning board at the last meeting were that we would receive a critical seeker determination to allow the project to move forward, in particular, allow the DEC to continue to process the pending air permit application. We've worked very diligently with both the planning board and with Tim at Wendell. And in fact, in prior conversations with Tim, we were of the impression that the environmental issues had been addressed with the planning board, that we had provided all required information, and we were in a position to move forward at this upcoming meeting on Wednesday. Unfortunately, we've learned in the past couple of days that the planning board doesn't view us as continuing to be on the agenda, and this creates a critical problem for Bridgestone in moving this project forward. I will say that, you know, it's these type of things that cause concerns to outside developers. I do a lot of development work across Western New York for developers from both within the community and outside the community, and this type of process where there's a lack of real expectancy as far as how it's going to be handled really makes it difficult for outside companies to come into the area. Bridgestone, I can say, was a little put off in general by the amount of approval work that was required, but they've worked very diligently to satisfy those concerns and have hired a lot of local experts to help do that and move them through the process. But they were very, when I spoke with them this morning, to use the phrase lightly, unhappy with learning of the fact that their expectation as far as moving forward on Wednesday is not going to be met. I've done this for 15 years, and I can tell you I've never been in a situation where a project has gone from being on an agenda to off the agenda without getting the consent of an applicant. I looked through the town of Wheatfield code, I looked through the website, and this seems to be a policy of the planning board, but not necessarily anything that's been codified. I'd even note even further that your code, in particular, section 44-5 of the code, which talks about planning and zoning board process, specifically states that in order of preference, past and pending applications should be handled first by the Planning or Zoning Board of Appeals rather than new matters. In this case, a pending application is being usurped by 4 other applications that are, from what I can understand, may be new. So we're certainly concerned with the treatment that we've received on this. We believe that we've worked very diligently with the planning board to move this forward and given them everything they've asked for. I don't think anyone on the board would refute that particular statement. But we're in a very critical spot here as far as moving this project forward, and we're looking for some assistance with that. I understand that the council does not have a direct role with the planning board, but they are under your supervision as an appointee of the council. So I'm here to answer any questions that this board may have with respect to that application and the current status. But other than that, I'm just asking for your assistance to the extent you can give it to me.
I could tell you that there has been a lot of discussion, especially between our town attorney and the chair. As you said, our rules do not allow the town board to make decisions for the planning board. No different than if it was the town court. The judges make their own decisions on how they rule their court. In this particular instance, we apologize that our website was not sufficiently up to speed to state for. I don't know whether Matt has had any success getting it back onto the agenda. From what I've been told, you were not on the agenda except up to item number 6, and they only take 4. And that we apologize that that's missing from the website, and that will be corrected in the next, as soon as we can. It can only be corrected by the planning board making that public.
I have to say that's also rather unusual to limit an agenda of 4 items. Tomorrow morning I'm going to be at the City of Buffalo Planning Board, and they will probably have 40 items on their agenda. And in 3 hours they managed to get through 40 items on the agenda. So, I mean, it is a little unusual the way this has been processed, you know, as a whole. And, you know, we feel we've acted in good faith to satisfy the concerns and follow the process as we, you know, understand it. And so we're a little bit dismayed that it's kind of what we view as a change in events. And Matt's been extremely helpful. I have to say, he's been very responsive, and I know Bridgestone certainly appreciate that.
I guess I can add, there has been communication back and forth with the head of the planning board. At this point, there hasn't been any definitive, and of course, time is running short, but there hasn't been any definitive decision. I know Wendell and Drew had indicated that there is some discussions that I was not aware of about possibly taking up the secret matter, which I think you had said that was of critical importance. And I don't, maybe Drew, you could fill us in a little bit more, but we understand, and I've looked at the website. There maybe are some corrections. They've adopted a policy, as you indicated. It may not necessarily be codified, but that board is autonomous from this board, and just like they don't tell this board necessarily what to do, this board keeps that separate. So I think just for this board's information, the most that, and of course we can hear from Drew, but the most that this board can do is perhaps either make a recommendation or a referral recommendation to the board to consider placing this matter on the calendar for Wednesday, or if they're unwilling to do that, or if there's not enough time, at least shortly thereafter, prior to the next scheduled meeting, recommend that they call for a special meeting to address it prior to that. But I know, as you said, Drew, there were some additional conversations in the background. I hadn't...
Yeah, based upon a conversation we had with him at 4 o'clock today, and going through their policies and procedures, he's willing to consider, and they're going to discuss it tomorrow, placing it as a seeker item. You know, they don't want to break, they don't give anybody special treatment. They say they follow their policies and procedures, which we have to talk about in the future, but for now, they're going to consider that a seeker item, as long as they're not breaking their policy of site plan applications, et cetera. So hopefully tomorrow morning they will, agreement of the planning board that they will consider this as a seeker item for Wednesday night. If they do that tomorrow morning, we will add it to just to let people know on the website that this will be taken up as an extra item under seeker, which they did say at the last meeting that they had received all the information for seeker. They needed additional information on the site plan. So there was that procedural thing that we said, give them the opportunity to take the seeker item up and then take the site plan up at a subsequent meeting. So hopefully tomorrow morning he will get agreement of his planning board members that he'll do it that way.
And I appreciate that, Drew. I mean, that certainly would be helpful.
I mean, and like I say, either perhaps they can take that up, or the rules also allow a special meeting to be called for cases where there is a rush type thing. So certainly, if this is not to be addressed on Wednesday, I would imagine on behalf of Bridgestone, you may, or we all may, request of the board to consider bringing this up at a special meeting within a short time frame and the parameters that are still going to meet what you need to meet.
Yeah, and certainly the seeker issue is really the critical issue, the site plan approval of that, and we acknowledge that we got our application in, while timely, behind some of the other items as far as the additional information on the site plan, but the seeker materials and that process completing as soon as possible is really critical.
Okay. Very good.
Great. Thank you very much for hearing me out.
Okay.
Take care.
Anybody else on any subject? If nothing else, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Art.
Second.
Second by Larry. All in favor? Aye.